We're going to talk about why that Game of Thrones last episode sucked. Or did it? I'm going to actually say it didn't suck. I'm actually going to go ahead and say that I thought the episode was pretty good. Was it great? No. Was it good? Yes. It was true to the source material. And it was oddly poetic. There's a lot of stuff. I feel like this ending was more tailored towards the books than necessarily the narrative of the TV show. Only because maybe there's just not enough. I'm not even going to get into the constraints of... I've never made a TV show. I've never made a movie. So I'm not going to sit here and tell somebody else how to do that job. Not going to do it. Just not going to do it. What I am going to say is that I honestly felt like a lot of people wanted something drastic from that episode. And one of the key takeaways was that in terms of plot, in terms of like a twist, a huge thing, it didn't try to shock you. It just gave you what was happening. And I'm good with that. It was wrapping the story up. And it didn't tie it up in a neat, pretty little bow. It just wrapped it up. Now, I will also caveat that with how everything played out. Like I said previously, played out more so than it in terms of how the book is probably going to end, or if it ever gets released. But the TV show, in terms of the narrative, it was hard to get certain things. I honestly loved it. I honestly thought that it was good. It was poetic. It was hurt. It hurt at the right times. It felt good at the right times. It didn't need this massive justice moment, but there was one. There was something that I think a lot of people overlooked, was the fact that Bran straight up admitted that he's been manipulating events since he became the Three-Eyed Raven. And that means the Three-Eyed Raven prior to was doing the same thing. So the biggest plot reveal was probably swept right under the rug, which was that Bran has been basically manipulating everything from the beginning. And maybe that means he's the Lord of Light? I don't know. But I think that everything that played out with Daenerys and Jon, it played out the way that it should have. It was a hard situation, and I mean, I thought it was poetic. I thought it was very Romeo and Juliet. Now, the Iron Throne being destroyed was very much in line with Lord of the Rings, and then Sam pulling out A Song of Fire and Ice, very much in line with Lord of the Rings. However, the wheel changed. It didn't break. The wheel changed. And so I find it interesting that the whole point of this is that when you're done watching the show, when a TV show ends, or when a movie series is ended, and the trilogy's happened, and it's over, people don't like endings. They want it to go on forever. This is why comic book movies are popular, because comic books go on forever. A character dies, a character comes back, it keeps going. But the reality is, sometimes things just end. Relationships end, stories end, lives end. And so we didn't want it to end, but it ended. And I think that that's what bothers people about endings, especially TV show endings for some reason. But like, if you compare this with like Endgame, a lot of people are like, oh, but Endgame was a good ending. And they're like, yeah, you're right. So, I mean, you can't chalk it up to saying, well, the directors or the writers were better. I'm going to chalk it up to the fact that the delivery after 22 films was amazing. But I'm also going to chalk it up to the fact that it's not really ending. It's that chapter is closing. So the Infinity chapter, phase 1, 2, and 3 have closed. But Spider-Man Far From Home's coming out. So it's not really over. And then, like, look at what just happened with Robert Pattinson being announced as Batman. Oh, my God. Oh, okay. I almost threw... All right, seriously. So, with Robert... I can't say it. With that announcement, you have to take into consideration that there's been a bunch of other Batmans. So even if a Batman story ends, there's going to be another Batman. At this point, there's not going to be another Jon Snow. At least not for a long time, if ever. So there's going to be a Game of Thrones prequel, which is called Blood Moon. That's going to come out soon. And that's going to be fun. And it's going to be great to go back to this world. And especially because I think it's supposed to be set like thousands of years before. But what I'm getting at is that this was the story. And yes, it's hard to say goodbye. But was it done the right way? Yes. Because the reality is when it's over, you go back to doing what you were doing. When the show ends, you were either going to sleep or you're, going and putting away the dishes from the party that you just had for your Game of Thrones watching event. So the reality is the world just keeps spinning on. So this story was, like I had predicted earlier, about somewhat the banality of war. It just, after it's done, like, it's just the wheel's going to keep turning. Now, thankfully, at least the wheel was turning in a different direction, or the winds were changing. Bran. But that's the point. It's going to keep going on. That's just life. When this show ends, you turn it off after whatever arguments you've had or whatever opinions you've had. You're still just going to go about living your life and go on to the next thing. So that's exactly what the show did. It showed you that that's exactly what happens. The endings were bittersweet. Arya's story mimicked her wolf, Nymeria. She went off into the wild, into the unknown, which fit her character perfectly. Sansa got what she wanted. She became the queen in the north. Granted, there were repercussions to those things. And Jon's story, I think a lot of people don't realize that Jon's story, and again, this is partially because I guarantee that the books are going to have, it's going to be a little bit more detailed and there's going to be a lot more things. In the books, it's implied that Rhaegar Targaryen never died, and he actually becomes Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall. So Mance, slash Rhaegar, had no idea that Jon was his son, and Jon had no idea that this was his father, especially because he didn't even know his parentage at the time. So there's a lot to say about that, especially considering when you're talking about heritage and talking about birthright. Jon was destined to be king. And yet he does become king. In a bittersweet moment at the end, he was king of the people he cared about. He became king beyond the wall. He didn't stay at Castle Black. He went beyond the wall with the people he fought so hard to protect. The people who had, for this entire time, were being warred against because they were treated as the others, or the White Walkers, and they weren't. They were just people that just got stuck on the wrong side of the wall, which is exactly what happens in war. Sometimes people are just stuck on the wrong side. Not necessarily the good or bad side, just the losing side, or an unfortunate side. I thought that ending was beautiful. So, hey, it is what it is. I'm looking forward to Blood Moon, and I thought it was great. I'm still going to go back and rewatch episodes. I'm still going to dissect stuff, and I'm still going to try to go back and look at all the details. So, for me, it's not over. For me, this is history. It was made. It was beautiful. What a great ending. For everybody who had any parts to it, I say thank you for all the hard work that you did, because what an amazing, amazing ride it's been. And I wasn't even one of the people that rode on it initially. I came on late. I came on in like third season. Like I was like, everybody kept saying it was like Lord of the Rings but with blood and boobs, and I was like, I mean, that sounds cool, but and I never got into it. And then I saw one episode, and I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And they said, don't watch just the first episode. You got to watch the first two. And I was hooked. And then I binge watched the whole thing. I went to the store, I got some pizza, I got some beer, and I binge watched 3 seasons in a weekend. That's excessive, but it was legit. And then started on the 4th season. So I haven't been on the train as much as other people, like from the get. But the minute I got on the train, I was full rail, man. I was all the way. I was all in. And I'm still all in. Thank you, D.B. Weiss. Thank you, David Benioff. Thank you, George R.R. Martin. And thank you to the entire cast, crew, and everyone who had absolutely anything to do with the adaptation of the book series A Song of Ice and Fire called Game of Thrones.